Hey guys, what's up, and welcome to this week's episode of 2-Bit Talks. Now, today's topic is emulation, and I actually saw a video of someone discussing the pros and cons of emulation, and I just kind of wanted to get my thoughts out, because I think I may have spoken about emulation before, but, what the hell, I'm going to do another one on it, why not? Essentially, if you can afford the original hardware and games, great. By all means, go out there and get, the original hardware and the original games and enjoy that. For those who can't, there's great options. You have PlayStation, you have Xbox, and even Nintendo. They all have a lot of retro games that you can just download, digitally from their shops and enjoy games that way, and that's technically emulation. And then you can also the little NES Mini and the SNES Mini, and of course Sega has a bunch of models of that out too, and then there's an Atari and Intellivision. And so, there's more options out there to play and enjoy these games. And of course, there's always the good old just downloading it onto your computer and downloading the ROMs that you probably don't own to play them. But there's lots of games that that's really the only... There's a ton of games that aren't, available to buy except for by downloading the ROM or going out and finding the actual game in the wild. I think eventually down the road, though, we need to face facts. I don't think we have to really worry about it in our lifetimes, or maybe towards the end of our lifetimes, but eventually all this stuff is going to stop working. I mean, time takes no prisoners. Eventually, there will come a day where there will not be a working NES, or a working SNES, or a working Sega Genesis anymore. For the older systems, I can see them lasting a lot longer, like the cart-based systems, but the disc-based systems, definitely not. Fewer moving pieces mean fewer broken parts, and unfortunately for disc-based systems, they have a lot of parts. From my mindset, if you want to preserve these games for future generations to enjoy, emulation's the only way to 100% that. Making sure the games can be played on other devices, in other ways, instead of relying on the hardware it was meant to be played on. It's going to have to move, whether it be on the PC, your mobile device, or what have you. And I think it's especially important for systems like the Sega Saturn. Now, I know the Sega Saturn has gotten... I had a friend who actually has an emulator for the Sega Saturn on his computer, and he says it actually runs decently. I have yet to see one that runs decently, so that's the one system I'm really hoping we can really get down, because that one's... It's just not there yet. I mean, it's not like the NES and the SNES and the Sega Genesis. Those systems, emulators began for them back in the 90s, and by the 2000s, early to mid 2000s, we had achieved pretty much almost near 100% compatibility, and the 64 is almost there. Same with the PlayStation. There's some iffy points here and there for the PlayStation and 64, but yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to discuss, was that, just that, for anyone who's anti-emulation, it's the only way to, for one, the only guaranteed way to preserve games for future generations. I mean, yes, you can keep games in pristine order, and honestly, in our lifetime, I don't think we're going to have to worry about the information in the carts decaying, or anything like that. Hell, the PlayStation, it's been, it's been well over 20 years now. We're going to be heading into the 30-year mark, and PlayStation 1 discs are still working fine. So again, I'm not trying to raise an alarm bell and say, oh no, all of our retro games are going to just stop working tomorrow. I'm not saying that at all, and I'm not saying that it's going to be anytime soon. It might not even be well within our lifetimes. I'm just talking about the bigger picture, way down the line, when, say, your kids or your grandkids inherit your video game collection, and that's when, I think things might be broken down and not working anymore. And, emulation is the way to do it. That, and then also for people in the here and now, and they don't want to go out and have to spend a fortune or spend as much money as it takes to buy a new game or 4 new games, you know, for people like that, emulation is a great way of still enjoying the games without having to, you know, spend a bunch of money for, in my opinion, overinflated prices for games. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. You know, you for emulation or are you not for emulation? Where do you think, you know, the line, you know, lies as it pertains to our systems, you know, getting broken down and not working anymore? Thanks again for watching, guys. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, stay safe and play on.